Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the TMI Show, the Ted Manila Information Show. But, TMI, too much information, because we give you a lot of information here. I am Manila Chan, over in the DC Metro, right over there. Ted Rawl, New York City, where I heard finally got a little bit of rain. So did we, by the way.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so it's
not much though.
It's almost looking like fall here in DC. If excuse me, I'm trying to stave off yet another infection, a kindergartner infection.
Oof.
So any, parents, you guys know, like although I did read, Ted, that it's the first 6 years of life that children get the most sick, and then it kind of tapers off. So,
I can vouch for that. That's how it was for my kid. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they still get sick, but it's not like insane like it is at first. Yeah.
I read that children get sick, especially in kindergarten, that they get colds or something 6 times a year on average. 6 freaking times. And
doctors don't want to let you, use all the meds that we got to use as kids. They underprescribe antibiotics. They underprescribe cold remedies. Cough syrup. They never want to give you cough syrup. Cough syrup is a godsend for a parent of a little kid. You need it. Gotta have it.
I'm noticing the difference now from what I remember in the 80s as a kid versus what's happening now with my kid. But anyway, let me get back to telling new viewers who we are. So with stuff like that, we talk about, life stuff like that too. So if you are looking, though, for a straight-laced, button-down news program, this ain't it. It's not for you. We will advise that there might be some F-bombs flying from time to time. But at least they are not British Storm Shadow cruise missiles.
No, not yet. So we're not there.
We're not. Yeah, I don't see any of those flying over here yet, Ted, in DC. So we'll keep you posted, if it happens when we're live streaming. All the stuff that you want to hear about will be talked about here, and maybe some stuff you never knew that you needed to know about. And then, of course, we're always going to laugh along the way. I'll probably cough if I laugh, but that's all right. We are live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. So be sure to please like and follow this show. If you are watching on YouTube, please make sure you're following us there, following the show by subscribing. It is free. And of course, same thing on Rumble. Please follow, smash that like button, to quote our buddy JT. The Ted Manila Information Show starts now.
Off to the headlines. Big news right now. Judges at the International Criminal Court have issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former defense chief, as well as a Hamas leader, Ibrahim al-Masri, for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity. This move comes after ICC prosecutor Karim Khan announced on May 20th that he wanted to get those arrest warrants for alleged crimes connected to the October 7th, 2023 attacks on Israel by Hamas, as well as Israel's military response against the people of Gaza. The ICC said Israel's acceptance of the court's jurisdiction was not required. Israel has rejected the jurisdiction of the Hague-based court and denies committing any war crimes in Gaza. I also deny being a dude. Israel has said that it killed al-Masri, also known as Mohammed Daif, in an airstrike, but Hamas has neither confirmed nor denied this. Not to say, Manila, that the ICC always does the right thing. I mean, the ICC charges against Putin are based really on pure fiction, a crime that literally never even occurred. It's not even a thing about circumstances. But, nevertheless...
Popular sentiment at that time, by the way.
I will say that, although it's a ridiculous story about Russia kidnapping Ukrainian babies and taking them to Russia, it just sort of didn't happen. But
it didn't happen.
But and it's completely debunked. But anyway, that said, this is, I guess, this is one right does not really right the other wrong, but I'm glad to see this. I mean, the Israelis are going to go absolutely nuts, them and their supporters. This is a huge black eye. And I think it means more when you're talking about a country who owes its entire existence not to sort of the normal way a country is created, but it was created by the international community, right? It was established uniquely by the UN. And so, it's a UN mandated, created country out of whole cloth. So when you rely entirely on your existence, relies entirely on the international community, and the same system condemns your prime minister and your defense chief as war criminals, alleged war criminals, accused war criminals, and they can't go to a lot of countries because they would be arrested as soon as they step off a plane.
Right.
That's a big statement. It's a big moral statement.
Well, for me, I think, if you juxtapose this against what happened with Vladimir Putin a couple of years ago, and that obviously caused a big kerfuffle about him not being able to attend the BRICS summit in South Africa and stuff like that, and really not being able to travel to a lot of these ICC countries, which is like over somewhere, or I should say, not say over, but somewhere right around 100 countries have signed on to this.
Half of them.
None of which are the biggies that we would say, like the United States, Russia, China, and a small biggie, Israel. None of those players in the world, those key players, these movers and shakers, none of them subscribe to the ICC. So none of them have, supposedly have any jurisdiction. But like you said, this is kind of it's kind of a PR disaster for Netanyahu. Not that, all the live streaming videos coming out of Gaza hasn't already been a PR disaster, but I don't think he cares, Ted. I don't think it's a big deal to this guy. He's smug, and I mean, just look at him. He's going to retain power. He's not going anywhere. I feel like he starts wars just to retain his position of power as prime minister, so he doesn't have to go to jail. Because he and his wife were,
true. That's objectively true.
There's that. But this whole ICC thing, they're gonna, if they need to spin this PR thing, they're gonna have a tough time because Netanyahu.
They're gonna say that the ICC is anti-Semitic. That's what they're gonna. That's always their play.
That's always the play. But he's also friends with Vladimir Putin. Don't forget, they actually have fairly good relations, Netanyahu and Putin. That is, but Putin, I think, has made it very clear that Russia is not in favor of this type of action that they've been taking for the past 13 months.
No,
I think it's pretty obvious. So I don't know how Netanyahu is gonna spin this by saying, "Hey, look what you did to my buddy Vladimir Putin. That's not true. So it's not true for me too." Because then he's gonna piss off the U.S. and then
he's not gonna talk about Putin at all. No, he's going to say these are anti-Semites. The anti-Semites are everywhere. These are a bunch of evil bastards in.
Did you check behind you, Ted? There might be some anti-Semites behind you.
There might be. Ooh, I think there might be some under my desk.
There might just.
I'm near Columbia University here, which apparently is a hotbed of anti-Semitism. Even though no one can there's not even so much as an audio recording of anyone saying anything anti-Semitic. But, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That's apparently the most anti-Semitic thing that any anti-Semite has ever anti-Semitically ever said in an anti-Semitic way. Although, will be free. I still fail to see the threat. I do.
Freedom is a threat. And Ted, I'm curious to see what Trump is going to say even before he gets into office, because remember when the ICC had threatened this years ago during the Trump presidency of investigating Netanyahu and other, Israeli officials for XYZ, name any crime, right? Anything.
Yeah.
Any humanitarian horrors that have been happening for the past 70 years. Remember that Trump and his administration in the first go around said that they will not only rebuke those claims against their buddy Bibi, but they were gonna file criminal charges against the judges and the investigators at the ICC themselves and ban them from coming. They put them on a sanctions list and banned those judges from coming to the US. So
right.
we're probably going to see more of that coming out of Trump before he even takes office. So, stay tuned for that, I would say.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, go ICC. Good job. I guess they'll. I wonder
50-50.
if they'll have a trial in absentia. I don't know if they do
Well,
that. I mean, I don't think
I
they
think
they
they
didn't. They had to wait to catch
do.
Milosevic, right? So in order to put him on trial.
Yeah, I
And I
don't
always
know.
have problems with trying people in absentia, but I feel like it's not a real process at that point. But
Well, no. But
all right. Anyway, all right,
all
let's
right.
move on. The U.S. cast the loans along the same lines. The U.S. cast the lone veto to sink a UN Security Council resolution calling for an immediate unconditional ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Washington said that it was against the ceasefire resolution because of wording that would have allowed Hamas to wait until after a ceasefire to release the roughly 100 remaining hostages. Dudes, you are so high. If there's 10 left, I would be shocked that it still holds in Gaza. This is the fourth time that the U.S. has blocked a ceasefire resolution of this kind. The draft also called for Palestinian civilians in Gaza to be allowed to return to their homes. For the what homes? 90% of the place is gone. For the unhindered delivery of humanitarian aid to the Strip and for a complete withdrawal of Israeli forces. The resolution's failure comes as the humanitarian situation in Gaza continues, if you can believe it, to get even worse. Earlier this week, unknown armed men, well, we kind of do know who they were. They were goons, gang goons working with the IDF. Looted roughly 100 trucks in a humanitarian convoy, causing food prices in the already starving enclave to soar. Manila, a pack of cigarettes in Gaza now costs $2,000 US. The UN,
What?
it does. The UN estimates that only 16% of the 1.7 million people in central and southern Gaza have received adequate food rations. Last week, a 30-day ultimatum ran out for Israel to improve humanitarian access to the Strip or risk losing some U.S. arms transfers. Washington said Israel had done the bare minimum to satisfy its concerns. The first time I covered a truly hot war, some veteran correspondents told me, everything in a war zone is paid for in hundreds. You just bring rolls of $100 bills. And I was like, well, what about change? And they laughed. They were like, you're not going to need change. So I'm like, so what if you're just getting a sandwich? They're like, it's going to be at least $100. Everything is the prices just go absolutely through the roof. And that's not just for, obviously they target Western war correspondents the most because you have the deepest pockets, but that's also true for the locals. And, in a place like occupied Gaza right now, you just know that if you wanted something like, anything, like let's say you wanted a bar of soap, I wouldn't be at all shocked if a bar of soap is 25 or $100. It's just like basically everything just goes completely through the roof. And it's at a time when people have absolutely nothing, but they're just basically digging into their savings. And in those countries, well, it's not a country, but in those places, people tend to have their life. They don't trust banks, so they have a lot of cash lying around. So that contributes to the economy.
I don't even know what to say about any of that. With we're looking at the United States being the lone veto calling for an immediate ceasefire. I mean, on its face, it just looks bad. On Joe Biden's final, I think we're on 59 or 58 days now. This is what his administration is doing. As usual, being mealy-mouthed, talking out of both sides, being like, oh, we care about the Palestinians. We care about Gaza. Oh, you should totally do a ceasefire. And then when you have a chance to literally do something about it at the UN, you find some lame, weak-ass excuse to veto it. I don't care what their excuse or reasoning is. You figure out the details after. The main point is stop the bloodshed. And Congress, the lower house, they voted as well. Well, the Senate did too, I believe. And there were only a handful of bipartisan lawmakers, mostly Democrats, who voted in favor of an arms embargo yesterday. So there were a lot of different votes happening, and it was just so sad to me, Ted. Like the past 13 months, like I largely avoid news on the day-to-day happenings in Gaza because I can't. My frail mommy heart can't take it. Because I mean, I'm seeing kids, my son's age, that are
Sure.
being blown to smithereens.
Every day.
I can't take it. I can't take it. So when I look at the legal side of this, the political side of this, it's just being used as a political football, and the US takes no solid position to lead the way, as we like to say that we do, that we're the leaders of the free world and we care about peace and democracy. Well, I don't think we've seen that
You're
since the
so
JFK days.
funny. You are so funny. Wait, we haven't seen that since when?
Like, I would say, I don't know, pre-JFK days, even if that even happened.
I don't think that ever happened. This is
Never?
a blood-soaked, violent country. I did a book in about 14 years ago called The Anti-American Manifesto. And just as sort of part of the point, I think the title is self-explanatory, I added an addendum of all military actions since the founding of the Republic, right? All U.S. invasions, incursions, police actions, blah, blah, blah. All major ones. I'm not talking about like a little raid. Like I didn't count like the Iran, like the Jimmy Carter's attempt to rescue the U.S. hostages where they lost the helicopters in the desert. I didn't count stuff like that. I'm talking about like real things like the invasion of Panama. Anyway, it was a problem because using a normal size font, it was going to go on, even jamming it all together in short little descriptions. It was going to go on for like 50 pages. You really can't have an addendum that's 50 pages long to like a 200-page book. So we had to like, make the font really, really small, and then we had to edit a lot of stuff out. The point is, it's the number. I mean, the U.S. has invaded Mexico over 100 times. I mean, it's like,
True.
I mean, just by itself. So, I mean, no, this country is, it's completely starting with, the colonial experience. Yeah, the Anglo-Saxons are the most violent tribe that have ever lived. The British, and now we're from that heritage. We're bloodthirsty, vicious sons of bitches. I mean, we're bastards, and we what makes it so galling, I think, is that we wrap it up in this veneer, this rhetoric of like, shining city on a hill. We're
when are we ever going to live up
we're
to that
awesome.
rhetoric?
Like the Rome, like you're there in Washington D.C. You see all what's the architectural model that Washington goes by? Ancient Rome, right? All the buildings look like Roman temples, Roman architecture, right? Corinthian columns everywhere, and but ancient Rome, of course, it had a lot of internal contradictions, and the big one was we're going to be a republic again at some point, but they never got around to that. But still, the one contradiction that we have that they didn't have was we are into conquering and glory and subjugating other people and bringing all that wealth back to the middle of the empire. That was what we're all about. That's what Rome is about. Well, we're exactly the same as them. But the Romans didn't go around saying, like, they said, okay, we're spreading civilization, but they didn't say, we don't care about freedom or self-determination. They didn't say that.
They didn't purport
we come as liberators.
Kind.
Hey, Gaul. Yeah. Hey, Vercingetorix. Hey, guys. Aren't you happy to see us?
I guess that's the part that I hate the most about this so-called republic, because it's so not a republic, is that we espouse these supposed moral, and we claim that these are part of our social mores as well, and like it's just not. It's not. I've not seen any evidence of it, and then we go berating the whole world about how to do things and how to be more civil and whatever, and then here we are at the UN being like, peace, veto. Yeah. Hey, everybody, want to vote for peace? Want to vote for peace? Everyone's like, yeah, yes, yay. And then the US,
when on earth has the United States ever leaned, ever really gone to the mat for peace or for putting an end to hostilities? That's not our bag. That's not what we do.
I can't think of any. Yeah, it's just not our MO, but yet
we'd like it to be. The thing is, the American look, it's like the people of Germany in the 30s. They weren't inherently bad people, but they tolerated a really bad system and they put it in the first place. And then they sat around and they didn't resist it in significant numbers. That's us. We're good Germans. All right, let's move on. A police report released last night provides graphic details about a sexual assault allegation against Pete Hegseth, who is, of course, someone you've never heard of until Trump picked him to become defense secretary. The report also documents Hegseth's vehement
Even Fox
denials.
viewers, even they didn't know because he was the weekend guy.
I'm a regular Fox viewer. I view Fox every single day, hours a day. I didn't
You've
know
been
who
on
he
the
was.
network.
I've been many times. The report also documents Hegseth's vehement denials that he coerced the complainant into a sexual encounter at a political conference in Monterey, California, 7 years ago. Hegseth was never charged. According to the report, the woman whose name has been withheld told the cops that she ended up in Hegseth's hotel room after he talked at the conference back in 2017, hosted by the California Federation of Republican Women at the Hyatt Regency Monterey Hotel and Spa. The woman, referred to throughout the report as Jane Doe, says Hegseth took her phone, blocked his hotel room door when she tried to leave, and sexually assaulted her, ejaculating on her stomach. She said that her memory was hazy and that she had drunk far more alcohol than usual throughout the day. Hegseth told the cops that he repeatedly sought the woman's consent for sex, making sure she was comfortable with what was going on, including the fact that he was not using a condom. Video footage at the hotel earlier that evening showed them at one point leaving a hotel bar with their arms locked together, the report said. Hegseth said that he believed the woman led him to his room and that he had no plans to have sex with her, the report said. He might have thought that with someone else, but not Jane Doe, it said. Mm-hmm. The woman's allegation, the outlines of which surfaced last week, have complicated Trump's intention to have Hegseth lead the Defense Department next year. All right, so is Hegseth's nomination, what's the word, fucked, or is it not?
I don't know. I because look, we saw Trump go through this whole lawfare thing with E. Jean Carroll and very questionable case. I mean, I'm no legal expert or attorney, but this like 30-year-old case that they changed the laws in New York just so temporarily for like 1 year, right? So
well, it wasn't just for him. I mean, it was after Me Too.
It was the Me Too thing, yeah. But it was like
ironically signed into law by none other than Andrew Cuomo. You can't make these things up.
Ooh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, from what I heard, though, it was because they already had that in mind, was E. Jean Carroll, and that's what I heard was the inner workings of what was happening in New York. So they expanded it for whatever. So my point is, obviously, with Trump having gone through what he had gone through with E. Jean Carroll, and that's still ongoing. Now we're seeing this with Pete Hegseth. So you could argue it's two peas in a pod, so he's not going to hold that against him, but conversely, I hardly know who this guy is. Like on the weekends, I'm not.
Well, we're getting to know him.
We're getting to know Pete Hegseth. But I have expressed many times before that I am not a Me Tooer. I am a case by caser, and this, until if there were no charges brought, I have to go based on the evidence or lack thereof in this case. And because I have
there is evidence. I mean, there is evidence. I just told you the evidence. I mean, evidence exists. If a case wasn't brought,
that's evidence that there was sexual intercourse.
Well, there's a lot of reason to bring. Yeah, but no, the evidence is that there's testimony from a person who claims that she was raped, right? So,
testimony. Yep. Nope.
That's by definition, that's evidence. It's not proof.
I know legally. I know, okay, by the term evidence, I'm using it in the non-legal sense.
There's no proof.
To me, there was no proof that he
hasn't been convicted yet.
I have seen many women lie in court over these things, and so
happens.
I am not a Me Tooer. I am not a believe every woman, and
I would want to know why that. I'd be very interested if I were on a Senate confirmation hearing. I would want to know. I guess, and I have a big question to ask, meta question, but like, what I'd want to know if I was interested in this episode is, why did I'd bring in the cops, the prosecutors, why did you not deem this worthy of filing charges, right? That's the question. I mean, was there a lack of evidence?
Maybe
did you just think that it would be a he said, she said, and you wouldn't be able to convict? Right. And, what is the deal?
Maybe
or was he's so connected, it's too scary to
I don't know. I don't know how connected he actually was, especially at that
somewhat
point. He was like
connected.
new on Fox, like on the weekends. And so I don't know. Maybe he's rapey. Maybe he's not. I don't know. I would like to see more.
I mean, he looks
more
rapey.
proof. He looks douchey, but douchey does not mean rapey. I'm just saying.
Douchey, there's a Venn diagram between rapey and douchey, and it's not like they're disconnected. You know what I mean? There's overlap in the douche rape industrial complex.
I get it. So I'm just gonna kind of mildly
question. Sorry to interrupt. Question. Does it matter? Is it germane to becoming defense secretary? Whether let's just stipulate that it's true for the sake of argument. Does it matter? Does it? I mean, that the defense secretary is a rapist? I mean, the thing is, it has nothing to me. What goes against him being he shouldn't get the job because he can't do the job. He's not qualified to do the job.
That's different.
Is there a morals clause in becoming the defense secretary? I mean, I don't know the answer to that.
I feel like the morals clauses you should have a lack of morals in order to be the secretary of defense. So for that, I don't know. To me, if you are a convicted, some could argue that Donald Trump is obviously then shouldn't be president because he's a convicted.
Well, he was convicted not of sexual crimes. He was found liable in civil court. You're not convicted of anything. Right. You can't be. Right. You can just be found responsible, like OJ was found responsible for Nicole's death in civil court.
Right. But there's the difference between civil and criminal
liable.
Court. So, if there was some, if I knew more about what happened there in 2017 or whatever this case was against Pete Hegseth, then maybe I might have, a better opinion to say he shouldn't be SecDef because he's a violent rapist, but because we don't have that.
As opposed to a non-violent rapist.
No, as opposed to just being some douchebag.
The Big Lebowski rapist,
at a hotel.
Dude.
And a woman, having buyer's remorse the next day. So,
I think actually she was the one who was bought, is what we're sort of being told here.
So I don't know. I that one's kind of iffy.
Sounds like a prostitution situation. I mean,
was it?
I want to know how. Yeah, apparently I'm being confused with Matt Gaetz, right? Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, that's different thing.
I want to know is Matt Gaetz rich, like that he can afford $10,000 to have an orgy? He is personally wealthy.
His dad is a very very wealthy businessman in Florida.
I see. Okay, because I was always wondering.
That's why he said he's a bro.
That's a lot of money. I mean, make $200,000 odd as a congressman.
He's a silver spoon kid in Florida, is my understanding, and Dad is a very wealthy businessman.
We have two more stories to get through this week. Tens of thousands of people, I'm glad you brought this up, marched on New Zealand's capital against a bill to redefine Maori rights in one of the biggest protests in the history of the country. Maori, sorry. I never knew that. It's one of those words that you see written.
I know some Maoris.
Really? Haka chants rang out across the 42,000 strong crowd. 42,000, not 40,000, not 45,000, 42,000, as it moved through Wellington on Tuesday in the final stage of a 9-day, 100-kilometer walk from the north, a Maori stronghold. Bare-chested men draped in traditional feather cloaks were joined by horse riders waving the red, white, and black Maori flag. Children marched alongside adults bearing distinctive full-face Maori moko tattoos and clutching ceremonial wooden weapons. The protests up and down the country are in response to a minor party in New Zealand's Conservative coalition government drafting a bill to redefine the Treaty of Waitangi. The pact, signed back in 1840 between the British Crown and more than 500 Maori chiefs, was a guarantee of Maori rights and autonomy, and it became the country's founding document. After the bill was presented in Parliament last week, Hana Rawhiti Maipi Clark, a Maori Party MP, ripped the bill in half and launched into a haka, as one does. In recent decades, courts have brought the spirit of the treaty into various laws seeking to address the legacy of discrimination. Some have included quotas for Maori communities in public institutions. The bill's backers say it's unfair. The small right-wing ACT Party, part of the governing center-right coalition, wants to codify Maori sovereignty but outlaw preferential treatment for any groups at all. That's basically like affirmative action. But critics from across the political spectrum say the bill would upend one of the world's most successful experiments in equitable relations with indigenous communities, opening the way to fresh exploitation of Maori people and lands. The bill will not pass because even the Prime Minister is against it, but it brings to New Zealand one of the most contentious culture war questions of the day. Do communities that have suffered exploitation or discrimination have a right to preferential treatment in the name of social justice, or does that spotlight race and ethnicity in ways that deepen social divides?
Oof, that is a tough one. What we're looking at there is the thing that sparked off the mass civil protests in New Zealand. That's the Maori lawmaker there, where the moment that she tears up this law that has been established for 120 plus years, and this kind of I think sparks a lot of conversation here in the United States as well, for like a lot of talk of within the African American community or indigenous Native Americans here. So this is like obviously a very contentious topic. The difference there in New Zealand is the Maoris are 20% of the population.
Yeah,
so
that's really significant. Yeah.
That's not a small, indigenous minority.
I normally can argue a story like this either way, but I got to say, in this case, because it's the founding document of the country, and it's basically like the Constitution of New Zealand.
Right.
I would say a deal is a deal. You made a deal, and like you got to stick by your deal. It's a founding document. It's not like now we see it different. I mean, it's like. This is like, I don't care if you don't like the terms now. You literally wouldn't have a country without this document.
And furthermore, if we look at the Maori experience versus the Native American experience, and you contrast the two, the fact that the Native Americans were not a party to some of our founding documents which is why their community has been fucked the past several hundred years. And the Maoris can see that, obviously, by the magic of sight and the interwebs. They can see that. So obviously the younger lawmakers, like we're looking at this woman here, don't want what happened to the Native Americans for that to happen to them, where suddenly they're further exploited and the opportunities are not there for them. So good for them is what all I can say is good for them standing up and then having tens of thousands of people taking to the streets and saying,
42,000.
Exactly
42,000.
Exactly 42,000.
41,992.
No.
No. 42,000.
42,000. Be precise.
It's very, very specific. Right. I like their crowd counting skills. One last story before we bring in our guest. Yeah. Fat tissue cells keep a memory of obesity after dieting, with long-lasting changes to gene function. That, according to a new study. The study might help to explain why many people struggle to sustain long-term weight loss. Researchers analyzing fat tissue cells in humans and mice found epigenetic changes to the RNA of those with a history of obesity compared with control groups. Genes involved in metabolism for those individuals were turned off. Their fat cells also took in nutrients at a faster rate. How fascinating is that? After low-calorie diets, those with a history of obesity regained weight faster than their respective control groups. This study suggests a correlation, not necessarily causal tie, between the pace of weight regain and epigenetic markers for those with a history of obesity. These molecular differences remained even after stomach reduction and gastric bypass surgery, with no known mechanism to reverse them. Researchers suggest their findings may emphasize the value of prevention. Okay, big duh there. I gotta ask you though, it's like this. It seems to me like the next place my brain goes to is gene splicing, right? Like, if you can modify people's DNA, I mean, this is already a thing, right? CRISPR.
Yeah.
If you go into if you do CRISPR and you can address the epigenetic changes, if you can isolate them and identify them in your RNA and your DNA, couldn't you get rid of the epigenetic predisposition to regain weight quickly, even though you're not you're not consuming as many calories as someone else? What?
That is. I was saying, man, Ted, that is a whole lot of jumping through hoops to try to reprogram somebody's, established DNA.
Why?
So, I mean, that's a lot. I mean, all I
Obesity
gotta
kills
say
people by the millions.
I know. But that's a lot of it has to do with diet. Some of it has to do with how
Not
your
according
genes
to
are
this.
programmed, as we know. Well, I
No,
know, but
according
a
to
lot
this,
of your
has
genes
nothing
are
to do with
programmed.
diet. According to this, it's like, you know, if you, it's like
genes are
obesity.
programmed.
It's predetermined, and I like anyone who knows anybody or who has personally suffered from excessive weight gain and has been frustrated that like no matter how little they eat, they still gain weight or they can't lose weight.
Yes.
They know,
No,
we
I
know
agree.
this is true, that there are people
But
who
you add,
it's not their fault. They just can't help
like
it.
the study says, though, because your body's programmed a certain way, your body is gonna not metabolize not everybody's gonna be like me, right? Like I
Right.
don't
That's
tend to
the
gain
point.
weight.
But
That's
everyone could
because I'm
become
programmed
like
a certain way.
everyone could become like you, is my point.
But yeah, but you know, the that seems like a lot. I don't know if we're ever going to get to that place where science wants to even do that, because the industry, the
Why
big
not?
pharma
They'll make
industry,
money off of
no,
it.
because Ozempic is so freaking huge, and big pharma
This is
and big
this is a
food
job for
and big ag.
RFK. We know
They
RFK
want
watches the
you
show.
fat and unhealthy. Like that's the whole point. Yes,
Bobby,
RFK watches the show.
call me.
Seriously, we got a lot to talk about. Yeah. But this is, I think, a very fascinating advancement in science. If epigenetic science is amazing to me. And I think we could literally do a whole episode about this, and we can find a scientist that can talk about this, because it is an emerging science. And as we know, Ozempic and all these like miracle weight loss shots or whatever they do, like, I mean,
they're
they're
not
injected,
that miraculous. Right? They don't last, right? Like
right.
I looked into Ozempic. I could barely just qualify to get it. And I looked into it, and it's like and the thing is, like, as soon as you stop using it, your weight's all going to come back. So what's the fucking point? It's not really a real solution unless you just want to, you like needles.
I don't know. Not for me. Not my thing. All right, let's move on to our main topic of the day, Ted. If you want to go ahead and let's read the lead in, because our guest is patiently waiting.
Yes, he is, and we appreciate that he's here. Secretary of State-designate Marco Rubio has flown under the radar as the media spotlight shines a light on controversial cabinet picks like Matt Gaetz and RFK Jr. In many ways, however, Rubio, who will head the first or second most powerful federal department alongside the Defense Department and will be on the short list in the presidential line of succession, is the most extreme and radical of them all. Rubio, an unreconstructed neoconservative who would have been at home in the Bush administration that brought about the misbegotten war against Iraq, is exactly the kind of DC swamp creature Trump promised to purge. And he's espoused extremist militarist positions against Latin American nations like Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba. Now he's out to pick a fight with China, because who doesn't want that? We are joined by human rights, labor rights, and peace activist Dan Kovalik to help to explain how state became more militaristic than defense, why Trump picked a member of the DC blob for state, and what it all means for Trump's foreign policy. Dan, thanks for joining us here on the TMI show.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Let me just plug some of Dan's books, the ones relevant to exactly what we're talking about today. Let me go ahead and put that up there. Bear with me 1 second. There it is. That's Nicaragua, A History of U.S. Intervention and Resistance. That is out now. I think that came out last year, right, Dan?
Good cover.
Right?
Yeah, 2022, I think. Yeah.
Oh, wow, 2 years.
I think, or 23. I don't know. I lose track. But yeah, pretty recently.
I don't know how you manage to churn out so many books and do everything you do. I have no idea. And then, of course, this one's the most recent one.
That is, yes. That just came out in May. Yes.
That's what I mean. Like, good grief, you're cranking them out, Dan. So, of course, Dan is an author and a professor as well. So I think you're pretty qualified to talk about this dude, Marco Rubio.
Yes, I've been following him a long time too. So
just a little bit. First off, what about just off the top of your head, what was your knee-jerk reaction when Trump said it's going to be Marco Rubio?
Well, certainly my first thought was, well, you know, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, you know, that this promise of change, you know, to end the endless wars was an empty promise, right? I mean, because Marco Rubio is about as hawkish of a person as he could have picked. As Ted mentioned, he really has a thing for China, would like a confrontation with China. He will be tough on the Latin American countries like Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba, even tougher than the current administration, which is saying a lot. Cuba is already in very bad trouble economically, the worst it's ever been. Venezuela isn't far behind. Nicaragua's doing okay, but the sanctions against Nicaragua are fairly new. But Rubio's made it clear. I mean, he will have those countries in his sights. I mean, it will be war all the time under a Rubio State Department, I think. So I don't want to say I'm disappointed, because with Donald Trump, it's like you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, you can't really take him at his word. I mean, can you take any politician at their word? I don't know. But certainly with Trump. Now, I will say one thing. I did hear an interview with former Lieutenant Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson. I don't know if you've had him on your show, but he said that he thinks guys like Rubio won't last, that he'll be fired within a year. And I'll tell you one theory that
There's some hope.
that I had.
I can see that.
It's very interesting he would pick a sitting senator, right? With the Senate so close, that he would take a sitting senator from Florida, a very important state, pull him out of the Senate, risk that seat. And it's very risky for Rubio, because if he does lose his job quickly, he's out of the Senate, right? He would have to run whenever year, I don't know when his seat would open again. But it's a risk. So the question is too, did he pick some people he wanted to get out of the way? I mean, those two have not liked each other, right? They've been rivals. It could be a poison chalice. I'm just throwing that
Rubio
out.
is not stupid. I mean, obviously he and the people around him have to have considered that possibility, that they're being played.
Well, that's why it's a poison's chalice, but it's a too good of an offer to pass up.
Right.
That's one of the most prestigious and most powerful jobs you could have. So it may be worth the risk. Again, that's total conjecture, but I want to throw it out there because Lawrence Wilkerson, who I respect, also gave that opinion. It's something worth thinking about. But
I mean, 3D chess, that's real. Like that's real here in Washington, D.C. Like they really, the House of Cards stuff that people think this is all bullshit or whatever.
No, that's all true.
That stuff happens. All those backroom talks and I'll do this if you do this, but then this has to happen over there. All that is real. Like having been a reporter on Capitol Hill, I've overheard things just because I'm in the lunchroom.
But of course, Ron DeSantis gets to pick Rubio's replacement. So Rubio's replacement as Florida senator will be another Republican.
Okay,
obviously.
so that's safe. But again, so it's safe for the Republican Party, but it is not safe for Marco Rubio.
But I mean, it's not safe for him at all. In fact, I'd probably, if I was his friend, advise him strongly to not take the job.
Don't trust Trump.
I think Manila's right. He doesn't last. Well, I mean, I think you're right, Dan. I don't think he lasts a year, for sure. But I mean, why did Trump world, why did they decide to go with this neocon in this position? I mean, Trump made very clear, he's repeatedly said how much he hated the fucking neocons in his first term, that he felt that they led him astray, that they fucked him over. And so are they still so much a force in the GOP and within the establishment in general, inside the blob, that there's just like, you have to throw them a big meaty bone, or they're still going to, and otherwise they're going to eat Trump alive? Or is there something else going on?
Well, it's a good question. I do think it has to be assumed that the president of the United States only has so much power to maneuver within the military-industrial complex. I mean, I think most of us understand that to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
That whatever you call it, I don't like to use the term deep state. I think it's, I don't know, it's too charged of a term, but it points to something. There is a bureaucracy that is very powerful within Washington.
Mm-hmm.
that includes the intelligence agencies, includes the Defense Department, includes the private defense companies, that, it exists regardless of who's in office. And it has its own logic and its own desires that, again, I think are consistent throughout administrations. So, I think there's a big question whether Trump could end the wars even if he wanted to. Now, and that gets to the question, does he really want to? Some have pointed out, you have to listen to Trump very carefully because he's an interesting guy. Does he tell untruths? Yes. But then within that, the truth is there if you read between the lines. And the truths that he gave about himself, even in his plans, were he wants to wind down the war in Ukraine. I think that is true. And I think he will try to do that. That's however, he was very belligerent in his words against China. Against China, as he would say. China. And as well, he was as Zionist, pro-Zionist as any candidate, right? And he picked, of course, Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard. They're two out-of-the-box politicians.
Although there's being Zionist, and then there's being genocidally Zionist, and those are not the same things.
Well, true, but he made statements that he wants Israel to go all the way. That he
do
would
what you have to do.
That there would like to be. He'd like to see peace in the Middle East, but he wants to see a resounding Israeli victory. What does that mean for the people of Gaza? So, again, in some ways, he doesn't hide the fact that he seems to want war in certain theaters and not others.
Yeah, he took out I hate the word took out. He assassinated General Soleimani of Iran in Iraq.
He was an ally in a way. He was fighting ISIS and ISIL, and he killed him when he was on a peace mission to Iraq. And there was a general who, I believe he even wrote a book about his term, about his tenure during the Trump administration, and said that Trump wanted to start a war with Iran, and this general claims he convinced him not to do it. So, I think we can't go into the next administration thinking that he is going to be a dove. Again, I think he may be a dove in some theaters, but I think he will be a hawk in others. And I think, Marco Rubio fits into that just fine. Will
little Marco, will he just, I think sort of the selling point to MAGA world is, he's going to be my Secretary of State. He's going to be my bitch. I'll tell him what to do and he'll do what I say. How much room to maneuver does little Marco have?
First, we can guarantee of the panel, the host of freaks and geeks and weirdos that Trump has put up there, right? We can guarantee that this guy, that Rubio, is going to be the one that's going to sail through the Senate, because not only is he one of them.
We're in wacky world, right? Literally, he's the lunatic, not RFK Jr., not Tulsi Gabbard. Those guys are the sane people in the room, but we live in a world where that's completely reversed. And in media world, Marco Rubio, no problem. He'll get 90 votes. It's like no, like I don't know about this guy who's been who wants to make us all eat better. What a lunatic. It's very fucked up.
Yeah, no, totally agreed. But I agree with Manila that he will sail through the Senate. And look, the Secretary of State serves at the discretion of the president, and Trump could get rid of him at any time, meaning that Trump has some power over him. So, Rubio has to maneuver within certain boundaries that Trump sets or is willing to set. But again, as some people pointed out about Trump, is that he's kind of a naturally lazy guy. He is happy to let others kind of do their thing, And, I think Rubio, if he wants to push certain agendas, he'll probably be able to do that, So I think it's a serious position with a lot of power. I mean, look at Anthony Blinken. I mean, he's a very powerful Secretary of State. Now, again, in part because Biden is not compos mentis, so I think, probably Blinken is filling that vacuum. But there's
I think he's been the most powerful one since Henry Kissinger, I would argue.
Yes. No, I think so. And again, because there's no one at home in the White House.
Yeah, totally.
Can we talk a little bit, Dan, about the weird role reversal between the Defense Department and the State Department? Manila and I talked about this a little bit yesterday. I mean, it's very strange, right? I mean, the state is supposed to be about diplomacy. And there was not so long ago, the division, the defense and state were always at each other's throats because, the war guys wanted to war and the diplomacy people were like, no, we want to talk. Those roles have reversed themselves now, where the Secretary of State tends to be bellicose and warmongery, and the Defense Department, although obviously not against war, but they're like sort of more like, well, there's logistical considerations. What you're asking us to do might be hard. We might lose a lot of people. This could be expensive. Are you sure? We're like the computer program. Are you sure you want to delete this country? Yes, no. What happened there? Is that ever going to go back?
I mean, I certainly agree that the roles are reversed in terms of what their functions are supposed to be, right? The Department of Defense, which used to be called the Department of War, which was at least an honest term for it, their job is to decide, when and how to wage war. And the State Department, theoretically, is the diplomatic wing of the U.S. government. But you're right. Certainly recently we see those roles reversed. However, it wouldn't be the first time that's happened. Of course, Manila mentioned Henry Kissinger, and Manila is someone, from part Laotian, knows exactly what he did to her people and the people of Vietnam and Cambodia. He was, he was a warmonger.
Dulles,
yeah.
There was Dulles in
there was Dulles. Yeah, of course there were the two Dulleses, right? And Brzezinski, he led the charge in Afghanistan. He, it was his.
He was National Security Advisor, wasn't he?
That's right. Was he not? Yeah, I guess you're right.
That was later, though, under Carter. Brzezinski. Brzezinski was under Carter because Kissinger was the first and only one to hold both National Security Advisor and SecDep.
Right. So, and also Hillary Clinton, I think, was a very activist, hawkish Secretary of State. So it's not the first time, but again, I do agree it's a role reversal in terms of what their function should be. And I do think we're in an extreme position now with Blinken, again, only because, the lights are on and no one's at home at the White House.
Well, Dan, you brought up like sanctions, and of course we can't not think of all of the different countries that the U.S. has sanctioned to no avail. It's ultimately never proves to reach the outcome, the maximalist outcome that the United States always wants by way of imposing these sanctions. We can't talk about that without Venezuela, and especially with the elections that have just happened there as well. And then to find out that what's her first name? Elena Machado. Is that her name? Elaine?
Machado? It's not Elena. I forget. It is Machado, though. We'll just call
Machado.
Ms. Machado. Yes.
Ms. Machado. She has recently admitted publicly on Western media that she is good friends for decades, apparently good friends with Marco Rubio.
Yes.
That is a little bit terrifying to me, given the instability of all of the other fires all around the world that have erupted under the Biden administration, precisely because the lights are on and nobody's home. But Venezuela is one of these places that the U.S. just won't seem to leave alone, and that frightens me with the Trump administration coming in and taking the hawkish stance against Venezuela, but similarly the way the Obama administration did as well. Like everybody's taken a hawkish stance against Venezuela.
Yes.
How threatening? How bad does this look the fact that the incoming Secretary of State, we can almost guarantee that he's going to be confirmed, is best buds with Ms. Machado.
Yeah, well, he is best buds with all the right-wing counter-revolutionaries in Latin America. I mean, that's who they visit first, from Nicaragua, from Cuba, whatever it is, that they find a home in his office in Florida, right? I think those countries have to be afraid. Again, Cuba's teetering as it is. Venezuela is not in good shape economically. You know, the sanctions that Trump imposed, I believe in 2018, 2017, 2018, brought at one point Venezuela's revenue to almost nothing. I mean, literally, they had no revenue coming in. I mean, because also remember, the U.S. stole their U.S. oil company, Citgo. I mean, they just stole it. And the plan is to sell it off in parts. I don't know where they are on that. But it's incredible, the deprivation that they've caused the Venezuelan people. Literally tens of thousands of people died due to the sanctions. And that's according to the Center for Economic Policy Research in Washington, as well as the UN rapporteur, Alfred de Zayas. Both have said that. But things can always get worse. And I do think they, you know, with Rubio, they probably will get worse, for those three countries.
Obviously, it's got to be for oil, right? I think this whole intervention scam from Washington that began under the Obama administration was eyeballing the big, humongous natural reserves.
It began under the Bush administration.
It was there
with the attempted overthrow of Hugo Chavez.
Yeah. But go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
I mean, oil's a big part of it. Oil is. I mean, the head of Southcom, she talks about the resources that the U.S. is concerned about in Latin America, which includes oil. It includes lithium, which Bolivia, another socialist country, has a lot of. I think one of the biggest lithium reserves in the world. Gold, diamonds. I mean, it's all those things which are hugely important in the United States, but also I think it's hegemony. I do think it's the Monroe Doctrine, which has never been repudiated. It's that we see Latin America is our backyard and we want to be totally in charge. I mean, I think so. In addition to the resources, I do think there's a psychological thing where the U.S. just wants total domination, and certainly, as the Monroe Doctrine talks about, which was at that time aimed at Europe, not wanting any competitors in Latin America. Now they want to keep China and Russia and Iran out. That's another big preoccupation that the United States has. So they don't like these countries that we mentioned because they all have relationships with those countries, that Iran and Russia and China.
Well, I mean, look, they're still down. I mean, this whole Juan Guaido scam didn't work a few years ago. And now they're saying the same thing for the Gonzalez guy that claims he's, you know, the U.S. is now officially saying, at least this is the Biden administration. I don't know about what the Trump administration is going to say, but they're saying that they recognize this Gonzalez guy, Eduardo Gonzalez, as the president. So they're doing the same thing. They're running the same playbook, right, as this Juan Guaido scam. And they're doing it again. And I don't foresee any of this coming to a peaceful resolution under the Trump administration, because Trump recognized Juan Guaido as the president as well in Venezuela. So I feel like during the Trump administration, you have Marco Rubio in there. I think that's going to be one of his first plans, Marco Rubio, is to satisfy the demands of his BFF, Maria Machado, and install Eduardo Gonzalez. And not, you know, they're not without any violence. Let's say that.
No, I agree with you that is the goal. And while the Guaido thing didn't work to the extent that he became the actual president of Venezuela, it did work to this extent. He became the vessel in which the U.S. gave all these assets to, right? Citgo, for example, other revenue. So that was an excuse to be able to steal the revenue and assets from Venezuela. And they said, oh, now we do have a president we can give control over that too. And by the way, where is that money? I mean, it's billions of dollars. Does Guaido
the gold in London, gold in the UK, the gold bars.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so I don't know where a lot of that's gone. And, it's just theft. It's old time imperial theft. Recall that just recently Maduro's plane, his presidential plane, was stolen by the United States in the Dominican Republic. It was stolen off the frickin' runway.
Insane.
We call this piracy in the old days. But that's where we're at. And again, I think we will expect more of the same under Trump Rubio.
Yeah, I think it's even more terrifying under having Rubio there. How about let's hop over to Nicaragua. I mean, I know you spent some time there in the last couple of years.
A lot of time. I've been going there since 1987. I am, since probably before.
So you were just a toddler.
Yeah, that's nice. I was 19 years old the first time I went there, and I've gone back many times since. So
there's not a whole lot of talk right now out of I think Washington regarding Nicaragua, but certainly Marco Rubio is one of the few senators that is raising flags about Daniel Ortega. And what do you see happening there, especially in the way of like we're seeing the diamond trade issue and new sanctions against them in the past year? Like, what do you see happening with Nicaragua, who is even that much closer to U.S. territory?
Right. And by the way, Daniel Ortega's just announced a new route for the canal, the long hoped for canal in Nicaragua that was a big reason for the U.S.'s early interventions in Nicaragua, right? The U.S. has coveted a canal in Nicaragua since the Thomas Jefferson administration, okay? And they've always wanted it under the U.S. control. So this is going to be a big issue because we know who's going to help build it under Ortega. It's going to be China. So the U.S. ain't going to like that. The one thing that is in the background and what has destroyed Cuba's economy is, I think, Marco Rubio will push to declare Nicaragua a terrorist state, which has all kinds of implications.
What basis would they have to do that?
I mean, none. But they'll come up with something. Right? They'll say, oh, well, here. I mean, I don't want to make the argument for them, but they'll say, well, they have relations with Iran, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is considered a terrorist state. So they're,
right. By support, like tacit support or whatever of a terrorist state. Or, I mean, could they go as far as saying the Sandinista government is a terrorist state?
Well, again, that's what they've done to Cuba. They call them a state backer of terrorism, which
state sponsor,
right?
Yeah.
State sponsor of terrorism, which is ridiculous, but they've done it. And what that does is it makes it illegal for any company. I mean, with criminal sanctions being threatened, it makes it illegal for any company to do business with that country. So, again, in the case of Cuba, they can't get anything. They can't get medical supplies. They can't, there's basically a blockade against them. That is kind of in the background that they may do that to Nicaragua, which would be devastating. Absolutely devastating. You make that country a pariah state, makes it impossible for them to trade for the most part. Now, again, they can still trade with countries like Russia, China, Iran, who won't honor that, but those countries are very far away, right? And are easily blockaded from bringing aid, right? In fact, the U.S. has blocked fuel shipments from Iran, literally physically blocked them in the Caribbean. So, I mean, these are the things they can do to countries to really destroy their economies. And of course, Nicaragua has already suffered and is suffering from a lot of hurricanes and tropical storms that are really hurting the country. Again, if they're declared a state sponsor of terrorism, even to get supplies to rebuild and that sort of thing will become very difficult. So, I think that's what we're looking at. We're looking at that sort of possibility for Nicaragua.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of what we'll see in the incoming administration is going to be a lot more focus on Latin America and China because of Rubio.
Yeah.
Which we haven't seen.
As long as he lasts.
As long as he lasts. That's right. I think it will still be war all the time, just in different theaters. And I think that
Right.
that's a large difference between the Democratic and Republican Party. I mean, the Democrats have had a thing for Russia for a long time. Republicans are
Yes.
more concerned about China, and that reflects the ruling class differences over those issues. Again, it's not a matter of not going to war. It's a matter of who we're going to fight.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And I think that's a great place to end it. Dan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's my honor and pleasure. I'll come on anytime. I love you.
Well,
Thank
and we'll
you.
have you back. All right, Dan Kovalik.
Thank you.
He's
I'm a
the
big
voice
fan.
you just heard with an
Thank you.
awesome white jacket.
Thank you.
Is
Dr. Kovalik.
Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Kovalik. He's an American human rights, labor rights lawyer, and peace activist. His book is called Nicaragua, A History of U.S. Intervention and Resistance, and it's out now, and there's a bunch of others, so check all
And
those
this
out.
one.
Thanks,
The new
Dan.
one.
Thank
Case
you.
for
Have a good day
Wilson.
now.
You too.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I do like that white suit. It's like very Tom
Looks
Wolfe.
good. Yeah, but it works really well when you have like the silver or whitish hair. It always works well with people.
I don't understand. Like my hair, it's like depending on the lighting, either looks like really gray or like today it looks like a little bit like salt and pepper. I don't, so I can't figure.
Yeah, Dan's hair's got like my mother-in-law. She's got like this big, thick, beautiful head of white flowing hair. Like,
Oh, that's great.
and it looks great because she's got a little bit of color to her. She's not
Mhm.
very pasty because she likes to do like gardening. So it looks very striking when she walks in and she wears white. Say like it works for Dan. He's young, but he's got the early grays and whites. I'm just saying, as a matter of fashion, it actually looks really good when people don't color their hair. I'm actually a fan of that.
Oh, well, I mean, I think there's some exceptions. Like sometimes if, you have that sort of dishwater gray, kind of like brownish gray, that's kind of unfortunate and you might want to consider dyeing. But look, hair dye is bad for you, so you shouldn't do it. And like also, it's a golden age of being gray. I mean, 25-year-old women dye their hair purple now, like grayish purple.
They are doing it. I'm telling you, Ted, this is like goes back to the Betty White thing we were talking about yesterday. There is a resurgence of Gen Zers and the youngest of the millennials being so into the Golden Girls, and they're the ones that brought in the dyeing their hair silver or gray purple because like the purple haired old ladies on the Golden Girls. It was a thing.
Yeah.
It really was a fashion thing. So
Sure
I don't know if they're over it, but I lost the one gray hair that I found, Ted. I had one.
You lost it, or did you yank it?
I didn't yank it. It's gone. It's not. I can't find it anymore. It's somewhere. Maybe it's in there. I don't know. But it was very long.
Yeah.
So I had the one gray hair. My family doesn't gray, so I kind of think the gray hair looks cool. Like Tulsi Gabbard has that one streak. I think that looks really.
Oh yeah, no, that looks awesome.
That looks really cool. Lucky her that she has that contrasting dark hair with that strip. But
Yeah,
anyway.
she looks like she looks like Dave Vanian, the lead singer of The Damned.
I was gonna say she looks like the X-Men cartoon version of Storm.
Okay,
Who brings the storm because she's got
that's true too.
Comic nerd. All right, we're gonna end it right there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the TMI show, Ted Manila Information Show. And of course, thanks to our buddy Putinbot Gaming for supporting us and moderating the chat and helping us out wherever we need it. So please go check out that gaming channel on YouTube and Rumble as well. And of course, we got to tell you guys to subscribe. If you are watching on YouTube and haven't clicked the subscribe or follow buttons, please go ahead and do so because we are really trying to get there to whatever that magic number is. I think it's like 500 subs or something.
Yeah.
Our channel's new. We're 1 month old. And we're the little show that could. We're getting there. We're halfway there. I'm singing Bon Jovi.
Keep clicking, click.
Click, follow, subscribe, like all of that stuff. It helps the algorithm on YouTube, so that way we can get monetized and we can actually make this a real thing, a job for us. And if you are on Rumble, please, if you are in the position to, hit that subscribe button right below the chat to become a $5 a month monthly subscriber, paid subscriber, so we can keep doing this show for you. If you find value in what we're doing and you enjoy the conversations that we are having with you every morning, please help support us that way. And then we are as we build up our content, we are working on like subscriber only content, like premium content, but one baby step at a time, because we're only 1 month old, Ted.
Yeah, that's true. Only 1 month.
Only 1
But
month.
1 month without 1 month without a regular salary is stressful.
Yes. And right before the holidays.
Yeah.
So
that means I'm not going to be able to buy any special gifts for Clovis.
You're not buying turkey anyway, and we'll explain next week, because Ted hates Thanksgiving.
No, I fucking hate Thanksgiving so much. I have reasons. I have logical reasons. You'll hate Thanksgiving too after you hear me.
We're gonna have like next Wednesday will be a
Fuck
fun
Thanksgiving.
Oh my God. Oh God. Okay. I'm going to save that for next week. I'm not going to get into it right now, but that's what we'll talk about next week. But Ted, you don't have to fork out all this money then for Thanksgiving feasts.
No. Well, no. Although I'll be forking out money for Thanksgiving feast because I'm taking my kid out to a restaurant. So, what else can I do?
It's going to be a Chinese restaurant.
No. I'm going to be in New Orleans. So, New Orleans. So probably go for.
That'll be fun.
I mean, look, the food won't be bad. That's for sure.
That'll be cool. All righty. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you again tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, for a fun Friday, jam-packed show, I imagine, because.
Oh, don't forget advice. We're doing the advice thing tomorrow. You still have time to get your question out there. So
you're committing to tomorrow?
I'm committing. Ted in Manila advice session.
But what
Ask
if somebody doesn't send a
It's
video? What if they only
AMA.
email?
No email. You have to email either an audio or a video attachment. If it's video, make it very short. But if it's audio, make it short, under 2 minutes. I think audio is probably, I don't know, either way. It's up to you, whichever you prefer. You don't have to do video. Audio is fine, but we want to play it on the air, and we'll answer it. It can be about anything. It's up there. TMI show question at yahoo.com. Question is singular. It's TMI show question at Yahoo.
Just one question. Don't send us like 50 questions is what Ted is saying. Send one question.
One question, and don't go on forever and ever and ever. This isn't fucking therapy.
That's true. If we did that, Ted, if we said this was like alternative therapy or whatever, I think we could actually make some money. We could really actually charge people.
Well, we should probably do that. We should we should literally make all sorts of promises that are just not valid. Like we absolutely guarantee you that you will be happy for the rest of your life.
Ted, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do this for tomorrow for a fun Friday. There's a topic it's tangentially related to the royals of Norway marrying an alternative therapy shaman.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember this. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so we have to talk about it because it's fun Friday. And if he can do it, then Ted, why can't you and I do it?
There's no reason.
I'm just saying. You might end up marrying a royal.
We are living in a golden age of grift.
Join the grift. That guy married a Norwegian royal. So there you go. All right. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you back tomorrow on a fun Friday. Adios, amigos. Thanks for being here.
Bye. Thanks.
I got to get rid of this question. There we are. All right. Adios, amigos. Bye.